Does body count matter?
Not very.
It doesn't.
No.
Okay, so then what's your body count? You just said it didn't matter.
13?
3-0.
3.
Nice.
No, 1 3.
How about you?
Yes, same. 1-3.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way she's saying the truth. She literally copied her friend.
Let's just call them what they are. Whores. Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 304. It is the second day of the week, aka the Special Beam Cannon workout. I am feeling pretty good, very excited. Looking forward to talking about today's episode. There are a lot of things happening in the world right now. A lot. I don't know what's gonna. I have no idea what it's gonna look like in the next few days. Honestly, that's how seriously shit is going down right now. But there are other things happening in the world. Let's say the world doesn't end right now. That'd be great. And somebody sees this in the future. I could talk about the 304 epidemic, or the whore epidemic, as it's probably really known as, but we have to censor our words. See this episode right here about that. But this is about the 304 epidemic, mostly because I've seen a lot of videos about this. This is something that I have to say first and foremost before I even start the discussion of it. Thank God, I do not have to join the dating market. I am out of that. I've been out of that. I don't need to go into it. Thank God. And bless you if you are a part of that market, because holy shit, you have to deal with so much bullshit that I thankfully didn't have to deal with, nor did I really even need to delve into. I basically have been in a relationship for quite some time. So dating apps were starting to become a popular thing around when I was leaving high school and around that time, I would say. So that's when the epidemic really started, I would say. The rise of social media also really helped in that. And what I'm talking about today is the rise in whoredom, basically, all across. And I'm talking about men and women. I'm going to talk about both sides on this one. Might focus on one more than the other, depends really, but at the same time, both are equally just as bad. So I just wanted to talk about that. So that's what today's episode is going to be about, is basically the epidemic that's going on and the realities of pair bonding and things like that, which might be its own episode, but we're just going to discuss it and touch it a little bit. And the fact that people aren't shamed enough these days, and realistically we should bring some of that shame back. But there's a lot of things we probably should bring back along with the shame that we're not doing quite yet. But I have a feeling that if society keeps going the way it's going to go, there's going to be a major correction happening sooner rather than later. Hell, there's a major correction happening right now in the colloquial terms of things happening. You can just say things now that maybe like 3 to 4 years ago would be untouchable. There are still things you can't say that are untouchable. See this episode again here, but unfortunately, you can't say the word like whore or, I can't even say it. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. Cunt. You can't even say that without it being a blacklisted word, which is ridiculous. So I find those things quite atrocious and leading to the downfall of Western civilization. So it's a whole other subject. But for right now, we're going to talk about this. The whore epidemic, or the 304 epidemic, is something that is happening all across all across the dating market if you are looking for a partner. The issue is that people are very promiscuous, and to the point where there's a discrepancy in both camps, really, where the top echelon of men can get whatever woman they want, but then the bottom echelon of men are completely disappeared to all the women across the board. So we have a lot of issues there. The ability to be able to hook up with anybody at any time, at any moment, is probably causing way more harm than we would like to admit, particularly dating apps and things like that, although they are going by the wayside. I believe that there's an article, or there's a study that says that they've statistically gone down in popularity because everybody kind of realized, or people at least are starting to wake up and realize, oh, this is just a giant meat market. It's not necessarily anything that we actually have to use. You can just go to a place and meet somebody, or you don't want to be a fucking piece of meat. There's that that too. That end. The statistics around it as a male versus a female is so vastly different. It is quite astonishing. So that's why it's just literally a meat market on tap at all times. And really, depending on what you look like, it can be very effective. So depending on what you look like and what you like, it could be very effective. So I think that this goes across the board. There's not one exact person or group or thing to blame per se, but a lot of little blame that kind of all compile together in order to have this entire issue coalesce. And why is it an issue, you may be asking? Because it is literally the breakdown of relationships, which are the foundation of society. Unfortunately, whether you would like to think of it or not, some of the things that kept us from extinction is literally relationships between two people having consensual sex and reproducing. That is happening less and less as time progresses, and this is becoming a very big issue, very big. So that is I've talked about that in a different episode, but this right here is part of that. One of the issues is the fact that promiscuity has become such a whatever, it doesn't even matter really. So with that being said, I'll get into more detail and a lot of other stuff, and maybe just talk a little bit about the who's to blame really, because realistically everyone's to blame, but we'll get into that when we get to Mother Base. All right, so started this day off with squats, which were pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here. The 304 epidemic, or the whore epidemic. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because this seems to be an ongoing trend with those who are in the dating market, an unfortunate reality of the world today because of a lot of different factors that are coming through. So before I continue on, because I know this is going to get some flack from certain people, I have to say this. It is an issue from both sides. You can be a whore regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. Now, of course, if you are a woman, it is a little bit easier to be one because you are more desirable, just a general. I don't think that anybody can disagree with that. It makes it a little bit more on them than on the man, but they're both to blame in the sense that there are men out there creating the 304 in this case. So thus it kind of perpetuates itself. And then because they are doing the act of trying to have sex with them, they are becoming a man whore themselves. So it's kind of like a weird vicious cycle where it continues on, just escalating nonstop. And really, there's no real way to stop it. There might be one, but we'll come back to that. I think the issue is that people don't want to realize that there is a statistical factor to it where the more people that you have relations with will impact how your relationships are later on in life, aka your marriage, and the statistical likelihood of you ending up in a divorce or just hating your partner. I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily taught that, or if they are, they just like to ignore the idea of the statistics being real or something that doesn't apply to them. For some reason, these are the same types of people that will ignore things like faith-based things, but will do science, but yet only do science up until a certain point. It's very frustrating. These types of cycles continue on now in society because of things like dating apps and social media, making it so that these places become essential meat markets for these types of people, and thus they are looking for their quote-unquote next conquest, but at the same time they are just perpetuating the cycle of this over and over again, creating things that are worse and worse as time progresses. I believe there is a certain level of detachment that men can have over women in the sense of the pair bonding ability once that is gone. But I do think that that can only get so far depending on what's happening and who you're talking about and a whole other host of factors. But it is a fact that the more partners that a woman has, the less pair bonding abilities that they have. And I think that that should be known more often than not, but for some reason isn't. There's a weird hiding of this information from younger people so that they can understand oh, hey, the more that I do this, the less it becomes an actual significant part of my life, but then I don't necessarily bond with anybody as well or as deeply as I would have, which is a terrible issue to have, especially later on in life, because then it will end up leading to them to a life of bitterness and just being with a partner that they don't really even care about. It's just whoever is there or left. Really. There also is a societal factor where, for some reason, I've noticed this trend for a little bit with these types of people, where women will, for some reason, have sex with the man that they don't feel they have a future with, but then make the man who they feel like they have a future with wait for the sex, which completely backwards. And in fact, whoever decided to make it like that, we should shame them. And that is one thing that I think we do need to bring back, the shaming part. I think that shaming was a societal benefit in order to prevent these types of things in both ways. I think that people would shame dudes for not settling down and also for not keeping in their pants, and then women for just giving it up so easily. I think that this was what we had, but unfortunately for some weird, stupid reason, we got rid of the shaming and thus created more of an issue, to the point now where our divorce rates are so high and nobody really has faith in the other sex. You can see the breakdown of it if you look at anything in the dating market now, where it is all hell, basically. But we'll talk about that in a different episode. But I do think that this is a general issue that we should bring something like this back, because unless we do something as serious, or at least as publicly as shaming, then we wouldn't get these types of things to happen. This has to kind of work out. Now, I'm not talking about flogging these people, but also put shame on both ends of the spectrum, because if not, you're just creating a cycle that's going to continue on and really just deteriorating the nuclear family, which is already fucked, to the point where we might have the idea of the nuclear family is basically going extinct at this point. And with the continual breakdown of this, to the point where society just keeps going in this circle, it's just going to get worse and worse for both sexes, to the point where no one's going to trust anyone at all, and it's all going to be just down the drain and fucked. And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped. We have one, the tib raises, because calf hurt a little bit. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand. The 304 epidemic, or the war epidemic, as it's probably going to be called. Well, maybe the thumbnail, we'll see. The reason why I wanted to talk about this was literally because the acronym of the 304, and as well as the idea that this is one of those things that is an issue in society. We fucked up. We need to somehow put the genie back in its bottle, but it's obviously not going to happen. So the question is, what can we do realistically? And realistically, the only things that we could really do is implement some type of shaming system, and or understanding that everybody has equally together in the idea that if we keep going down this road, the worse things are going to get. No matter how much you would like to try and pull away from it, people, I think, are starting to realize that we're going down a road that's going to lead to no return, really, and we're going to be fucked beyond belief. I hope that more people open their eyes and realize, hey, maybe something's wrong, maybe there is an issue here. And the issues that they always bring up nowadays are kind of stupid. I think the more popular one that's happening right now is the epidemic, the idea that there aren't that many attractive men around, but that's just a fucking a cope, really, a disinterestedness in the actual issue here, which is the idea of promiscuity in general just being an issue. Just that alone is one key factor. That is the key factor in a lot of this. It's a weird cycle that will continue to keep going no matter what happens, unless somebody decides, or a group of people decide to break it. Unfortunately, the people that are breaking it via leaving the entire sector of dating, which is going to be a terrible idea, because as people progress and move on in life, and once they get past their prime mating years, it's going to lead to weird absences of things happening. That is why they're starting to see more and more relationships of people that have like 10 plus year gaps. But on both sides, but are kind of weird, obviously, but also kind of starting to become normalized because of things that are happening in between the social dynamics between the two parties colluding together, making it so they kind of stay separated instead of trying to work together to try to make it so we could both be held accountable to make sure that, society moves forward in a good way. But of course, we have to blame the other sides instead of just trying to work with the other side. But hey, I'm just a dude, so, can't really do much about that. But it is just an issue to me. I think everybody can agree it's an issue. Those who don't agree obviously probably should remove themselves from the dating pool, as they are too stubborn and or too close-minded to realize that there is an issue, and thus shouldn't probably procreate and or probably be with somebody, because realistically they are going to be with somebody that is probably not going to be good for them, or it's not going to end well regardless. Maybe they could be with somebody who's also doesn't realize it from the other side. Whatever side you want to pick, is the problem. There you go. But it is a multifaceted issue where both sides kind of make it so more often than not. I will say this: if I had to give it a percentage wise, 20% men, 80% women. Just saying, only because it is harder to be the arbiter of what goes in if you are the going inner versus the opening the legger. It's very easy to do that. So I literally do an exercise for it at the gym. It's very easy to do, but the thing is, regardless of whether or not the blame is 80-20, 20-80, there's still blame on both sides, and it needs to be resolved for somehow, in some weird way, shape, or form, because if it doesn't get resolved, then things are just going to keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling to the point where there's going to be nobody on either side, and it doesn't even matter at that point. You're going to get a bunch of single mothers and a bunch of dudes who have never seen a woman in real life. That's it. That's just going to be it. And then eventually you're just going to get no mothers and then no men. And that's even more so of an issue. But that is just part of the grander scheme of this entire idea. There are a lot of issues here that we're going to probably go into different episodes, but I wanted to make this one first because it is something to talk about. I feel like a lot of people aren't. I feel like it is talked about, but not enough people are trying to find solutions to it. There has to be some type of solutions to these things, because realistically we keep talking about the actual issue, but no real solutions to something like this. And I think it's just more so along the lines of both parties need to work together and figure it out amongst themselves, really, especially those who are in that realm, the single life, because I can't imagine being in there. It must be hell on earth. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one was more, not necessarily random, but going off a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about, I think I know what the next virtue is going to be. Let's just say that. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.